Yep.
Yeah. So nice to have you here in Finland.
Thank you. Yeah.
You did a great show yesterday. I thought.
Oh, you were there.
Okay.
Okay.
I was there.
Cool.
I was there. I shot some photos and it was packed actually. I talked to Marco just that a couple of hundred people came just during the last couple of weeks. So it was totally full.
Yeah. I was pleased.
Yeah. So how did it feel like playing with Lordi and other guys?
I've known Tommy for a while because I did a guitar solo for him on one of the records, and the first big one actually, and then I co-wrote something on another one and did some work as well. And I don't remember the names of all his records. The Babez one or something.
I think the song was "It Snows in Hell."
Yeah,
was the song that you played. Yeah,
and Call Off the Wedding was something I was involved with, or something. We've gotten a chance to know each other, but not. The first time I actually saw him in the makeup and everything was a gig in LA. My wife and I went to see him. It was fun, but to actually be on stage with him was really cool. So I had a good time with him. I thought he did a great job. Because we didn't get a chance to rehearse or anything.
Okay. And this was actually the first time he has performed outside of his own band with anyone.
Oh, really? I didn't know that. Okay,
yeah,
that's good to know. I'll mention that when I talk about it.
Exception.
And I love the half Gene. That was cool. Well, everybody knows he was, a huge Kiss fan
and Gene fan.
Gene fan, and one of the originators of this whole Kiss Army. In Finland, so
that's true.
So it was quite cool to be on stage with him.
Okay, so if we go back to the beginning when you started out playing, roughly.
Well, I started learning guitar in about 64, 65.
So that was early.
Yep.
So who was the one that influenced you most? Who got you started on playing?
Well, like most of the, a lot of people, the Beatles made such an impact on me because I certainly was born at the right time for the whole British invasion, and it started with them, so my brother actually was aware of some of the folk artists and other people even before that. He showed some interest in guitar, but the Beatles just changed everybody's lives, and it wasn't hard for me to I had an opportunity to get lessons at a local record shop, actually, Mel's Record Shop, and I picked it up really quickly, which was obviously, fun. And I wasn't athletic, so I didn't care about sports. So I had a lot of fun just playing my guitar, and the bands coming from England just were amazing. I mean, all of a sudden there's The Who, and then there's Led Zeppelin, and then there's Jimi Hendrix, and it was such an incredible era of music that's still important now.
Yeah. Was your brother also a big idol to you when you grew up? Did you look up to him, learn his tricks, or did you always try to develop your own style and not just, follow him?
We kind of did a lot of similar things, and he certainly, Cream was really influential for both of us, Eric Clapton, and I actually liked Jack Bruce a lot too, because I love McCartney's bass lines in the Beatles. So because my brother was playing guitar, I actually I did play some guitar, but my first electric instrument was actually a bass. I bought an EB3 like Jack Bruce, and I played some bass in some of the high school bands, and then I realized I still love the guitar too, and some people heard me play guitar and thought I should be the guitar player, but I like that I had some experience on the bass too. So, but Bob, I admired Bob for his. My brother was brave enough to go all the way to England at a young age to see if he could, play with other groups or meet people, and he wound up actually playing with some of Elton John's backing band back then called Hookfoot, and he was touring with them, and I was just so proud of him. I remember when he came home, because they didn't, really go to the next level, but he was playing with some really professional people. So I was really proud of him, actually, and I did admire the fact that he you gotta remember he auditioned for Kiss, so he had his connections, and people knew about him. New York was a good place for all of this. Meatloaf, when they were looking for guitar players, they liked Bob right away. They weren't so sure about me, and Bob was very insistent on me as well. Which they realized was the right decision, because I could learn the Todd Rundgren stuff. I was a little more into studying the stuff, where Bob just did his style and he did it great, but he didn't want to be necessarily copy somebody,
So when I learned Todd Rundgren's guitar parts for Bad Out of Hell, everybody in the Meatloaf organization was pretty happy. So they got quite a powerful team of brothers to, be the touring band. So yeah, it's interesting how Bob and I, as much as we have our own styles, there's definitely a common thread there, and there's a beginning to it that was all born out of that British rock invasion.
And now you played with him on the Kiss Kruise, which you mentioned. So although you are brothers, you haven't played together a lot, at least in public.
And not in a very long time. Obviously, we did the very long Bad Out of Hell tour, but that was 40 years ago.
Yeah, exactly.
So outside of one time playing a short set at a Kiss Expo, we never did that before, and to do it on the cruise was really magical. It really worked. Everybody's talking about it, and I know, I've been gigging for 17 years with Grand Funk, so I'm out there a lot playing for various size crowds, from a casino showroom to a big, like city festival, and there could be 10,000 people there. But Bob was behind the scenes for many years, doing studio stuff, producing and everything. So for him, it was a real thrill for him to be on stage and performing those songs. I know he's real excited. But I do know that what we did, we accomplished what we wanted to, which was to really put on an entertaining show for them.
Yeah. And Bob was actually the one who recommended you to Kiss as well in the 84.
Although it really took some other people to remind them.
Oh, okay. So it was more than that.
Because I remember when Paul called me for Animalize, there were a few people that he was close with that were also aware that I was, had talent. So I was fortunate that people were talking. That made it easier for me to get the call.
So in the mid 80s, obviously that was the time for glam metal like that, but the image of the band a lot of times superseded the music, and people started talking more about how the bands looked and how they played. But especially in the Asylum record, and I think also on Crazy Nights, you could see that the band was technically very good and on a different level than maybe they were earlier and before. Do you agree that on Asylum there's pretty powerful playing, musicianship is really good?
I mean, look, I thought Creatures was a great record, and Lick It Up was, but Asylum definitely had now you had the same four guys, was finally officially in the band, doing the record. And that was, I think, one of the oddest things about Asylum was more the artwork and the clothing, and the videos were very exciting, though. But Paul actually helped design that, and I think he went for a very colorful, arty kind of thing, and maybe it didn't look the same as the Makeup Era or Creatures of the Night or even a Lick It Up. But I actually liked it. I didn't have a problem with it, but. I got a little color identification there.
Yeah, that's true.
But there's some great songs on that record. And Crazy Nights was a great follow-up.
Yeah, and that album also had a very specific sound, maybe because of Ron Nevison's influence.
Some of that, I have to admit, was Ron Nevison. Because he would choose songs. He was very much involved with whatever band he worked with. So and Ron did a great job.
Yeah. So on those records, how much influence did you have on, for example, playing solos on? Because that was again an era where guitarists try to put as many notes into the songs as possible, and sometimes the song would just, lose its essence in the
Well,
post.
Asylum, I know that Gene and Paul both were directing me a lot for what they wanted to accomplish. So I was happy to be there, interpret what they heard. By Crazy Nights, because Nevison was there, I had a little more freedom, and that worked well too. I always try to do the, complement the song and yet make the lead guitar to be an important part of the song. Okay. And obviously, when you're working with dominant people like Paul and Gene, in this case Ron Nevison, I want to make everybody happy. So I do feel like I accomplished a lot though with all of them, and I was always learning, and I was always trying to, just improve how I could best present myself as the lead guitar player, So if they wanted fast notes, I gave them fast notes. If they wanted more just a simple melody with a harmony, I did that. So I'm proud of that. And there is a difference as you go through the evolution of my era of Kiss, of all the albums and the way they sounded and the performances. But I think that's pretty common. If you look at the Beatles, or even an artist like Frank Sinatra, there's always like, you know, years of progression of different sorts. Sometimes they go back a bit, but I find that at the time each album was what we were searching for, and we did. And it's, you know, I think time has been kind to all of them. Actually, I still can tell the excitement from the fans. So I'm in some ways more proud of some of it even now than I was, you know, at the time. So I'm happy that we spent, you know, time on everything and had a definite goal and a vision.
Yeah. So after Crazy Nights, you did this one, Hot in the Shade, and this one I think was when you made demos out of. You made a lot of demos, and they became the album actually.
Right.
I think I heard you say that. So looking back on this album, I think you said at some point that this album could have been better sounding.
Well,
and do you still agree? Or
no, I mean, when I did the like a more in-depth rewind, it actually was better than I thought. I just thought there was, because the CDs were available, so you could put more music. You know, so we had 15 songs suddenly, which is unusual.
A lot.
And you know, Gene and Paul, again, we went back to not having a producer for Hot in the Shade. Which I didn't have a choice in the decision, but I actually liked it when we worked with an outside producer, because I found then there was somebody that could then be in the middle politically between Gene and Paul, as opposed to them trying to negotiate what to do, you know, because they were both so dominant in the band. I mean, many ways it was like, you see, the Beatles always seem to have had George Martin, you know,
as a referee.
Exactly. And you know, both with McCartney and Lennon being just so incredibly talented and domineering, and you know, Kiss is a different group, or a different style of group in the Beatles, but dynamically, when you have those two, you know, dominant people in the band, you know, it is interesting that there's some parallels to bands like that. Led Zeppelin 2, you have Robert Plant and Jimmy Page, even though Jimmy Page seemed to produce all of it. If Robert wasn't happy with something, I'm sure there was a problem, you know what I mean? Because he would be writing lyrics and very involved in every song. That band had 4 extremely talented people, you know. Never understood why the press was so hard on them. You know, but time has won. You know what I mean?
It changes.
And then look how a member dies and they stop. I mean, how interesting is that? Right?
Nobody has really done that.
No, not even Queen. And you thought they would. You know, in some ways, I'm not saying it's the right thing to do, what Jimmy did, and you know that would be the biggest thing. You know, right now, you know, even if they played with his son, and Robert Plant wanted to, and you know, but. I don't fault Kiss for doing what they're doing. I don't fault Guns N' Roses for doing what they're doing at all. Grand Funk, you know, there I am. Mark Farner was very much, you know, considered to be the lead singer, and even though Don Brewer sang and wrote some of the big hits too, but it was always, you know, Mark. And yet, here we are 17 years, you know, doing gigs, and the band's terrific. You know, I have a very good time working with them. No, we don't do, you know, festivals and arena tours like, you know, Kiss does with the huge production. But musically speaking, and you know, for what a musician hopes to, perform and have people, you know, enjoy it. You know, this past year has been one of our biggest. You know what I mean? So it just shows that good classic rock music played well and with a lot of heart and soul, you know, it's still relative, you know. Exactly. I mean, relevant rather. So I'm very happy about that.
So the last album you went with Kiss before they reunited, of course, there was the Carnival of Souls. Was this one that's just I think the 25th anniversary, and you played a lot of songs yesterday.
I mean, they kind of did tie that in. I mean, we could have done the 30th anniversary songs of Crazy Nights, but either way, I like that there's so many, you know. And then there was the 20th anniversary of Carnival of Souls too, actually. It's too much to do, you know. But Revenge was probably my favorite CD, actually.
And this was the album, I think, a lot of the solos were really identified as sort of mini songs inside the songs, as you would say.
A lot of that was Ezra's direction and insistence on making the guitar really bring the song up to another level.
Was he really as hard in the studio as people say that he would
is
really
very
push
difficult.
you?
Yeah. He was, you know, I'd say sometimes he was like a mad professor, but he knew what he wanted. He's just a very creative man, and I did enjoy working with him, and I was aware of why some records, like The Wall from Pink Floyd and Peter Gabriel and Alice Cooper, and the Kiss stuff, you know, especially Destroyer, why it was so, those records were so important to fans, you know, and myself, you know. So I really did see his talent, you know, and I learned a lot. I was always, even in Nevison, whoever it was, I always, you know, was kind of studying what do they do. Years ago when I worked with Billy Squier, even though we had a guy record tail of the tape, you know, Eddie Offert, the guy that worked with Yes, he was more like an engineer, you know, even though he got some production credit. But Billy was meticulous about everything, a little notebook and making notes about things. He always had fresh ideas, you know, to do this. So Ezrin pulled out some ideas that I would never imagine. And they didn't all work, but the ones that did were like, oh my God, this guy, now I know why, you know, he's been in the business so successfully. You know? So I have to admit that it was a real treat to work with him. I learned a lot. Yep.
Yeah. And this was the album that was actually the final one. That was just 20th anniversary, Carnival of Souls. And this one had a song by you called I Walk Alone that you sang for the first time on a Kiss record.
Yes.
So how big of an achievement or milestone is that to you? Or was it something that just came?
It just came actually, because honestly, I worked on that song with Gene for a very long time. We actually recorded like basic tracks for a version that was very similar to the final version with Bob Ezrin, because we needed to start the commitment from the label that we were going to do a new record. Okay.
Yeah.
So that was shortly after Unplugged and everything in the fall of '95, and that song just had a name like Waterfall or something. It wasn't called I Walk Alone yet, but it was a good track. And then there was something there that I really liked, and I worked very, very hard with Gene. I had ideas that I kept presenting to him about how to develop that song. So it kept getting changed. First of all, I made a whole backward section out of a bridge that we had from the session with Ezrin. And I just got really creative. I wouldn't let it go. It was just I got obsessed with the song. So I knew what Gene's melody was by the time he started to form words and everything. So I would sing demos of the new arrangements, you see. And Toby Wright, who co-produced the record with Gene and Paul, he heard that and he said, like, he's got to sing this. I was not on those demos for the purpose of me being the singer of the song. I was on those demos just to show Gene.
How it
so
would go.
Look how this section now goes into this one. I have an amazing playlist of various versions of that song with the evolution of it. I actually discussed it once at a Kiss Expo, but it was like way over their understanding, you know.
Yeah.
But you could hear Gene, you know, the first time he's singing, you know, along to us playing something like it, and where it evolved to, and the final version with backwards guitars, and I'm very proud of it. It's to me, it's one of the most studio trickery, Queen Beatle-y like, Hendrixy like thing that Kiss ever did. So I was very proud of it. It's not like I'd be bragging about my vocals or anything, because I don't have the range. Like Gene and Paul really had that powerful rock range, and my vocals were. It was just easier for me to be down in I know deep inside of me, you know. But I really loved the track, and I didn't realize the lyrics would be kind of very, you know, prophetic, as they say. You know, because I didn't know that they were, you know, kind of negotiating with those guys, and by the time Unplugged was done, they were able to figure it out that they were going to do the reunion. The money was there.
Yeah, and I think initially there was a concept that they would just do the tour and then this lineup would get back together, but that kind of changed along the way.
Of course, because the tour was so huge.
Yeah, so it just went on.
The timing was right for the makeup.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So after Kiss, you formed union with John.
Yes.
So two great albums, and this was a live album.
Yep.
Live album that I really liked. So, are you still in touch with John or?
Yeah. I mean, he's been really busy. Everybody's been very busy with. Brent, of course, wound up with Slash, although he was able to do that cruise gig with me. And Jamie stays busy in LA. We were a really. I thought the band had a lot of good qualities and talent in it, and unfortunately, I think the timing was a little awkward.
Yeah.
So we didn't get as many opportunities to reach more fans. But I'm very proud of the music.
This is this probably your only solo album as such? This BK3 record. This one.
Thank you. Yes.
Yeah. So any plans to do another?
I should, but as you know, the music business is so upside down. It's scary. Yeah, I was really proud of BK3. There's a lot of good players on it and songs, and I spent a lot of time on it. I did have a song that I didn't use for BK3 that I finished this year that I had my wife sing.
Okay.
Yeah, called If I Could Show You. It was definitely adjusted, and the key was changed, and some parts were updated with a good friend of ours. But I only released it digitally, But and then the future, with new music, I don't know. I've had my busiest year that I can remember since a busy Kiss year or something.
Really.
Where I could probably count on one hand weekends I was home. Okay, so I was constantly traveling. There's 52 weeks in a year, so. And then selling mini guitars, I finally, I was able to offer the fans, and I'd like to do some more of that. I like to, besides, I've done sessions for various artists, that I won't do the session unless it's a band that I, like the song, or I think they're creative. But I've, in between all the gigs with Grand Funk, which was a really big year for us, and then going to Australia for some touring for a few weeks back in May, and doing the cruise, coming to Scandinavia for just a week, but doing 3 events. I haven't had a moment much. I did release the single and recorded that song with Lisa and Matt Starr on drums, and I played the bass. But I don't know what 2018 will bring, but I'm excited to. I also offered some real guitars for sale, a limited run of the banana guitar from Crazy Nights. So I have lots of ideas, and I'll see what happens.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to the break because I've had like I said, a very busy year.
Yeah.
In November usually, which is not always a very busy month.
It's now been busy.
There was a lot of Grand Funk gigs and the cruise in Scandinavia, so it's like I'm very much looking forward to getting home and having. My life, my schedule, and being back home and not have to travel too much. I do enjoy, even though it's very hectic, events like yesterday, which was very successful. I was very happy about that. But it's funny, like I was telling some of my friends here, I have these dreams where people shove things in front of me. Sorry, please.
Yeah, like
you're doing.
Like I'm doing.
I just saw this but. And again, when I'm home, it's not like that, of course. People don't, I'm just someone that lives in LA, Yeah, do I get recognized some places? Of course, But I'm very fortunate, to be a working musician. But like most musicians now, they do have to work really hard because it's not the old days with the labels and everything is kind of done for you, and between the record sales and everyone kissing your ass, and Gene and Paul adapted too, even though they're still making very successful money every year. But they're very much in charge of their destiny, Doc McGee or not. They know how to market things and present things and do things. And I learned a lot from them.
So if they asked you one day to just come on stage with us to play on maybe
why would I say no? But I don't see it happening. But they had an opportunity on the cruise. I think it was better that they didn't because they didn't need to. I was going to perform with my brother, and that made that to be a highlight of the cruise. Because Kiss is going to be on the cruise. So what novelty do you have there? But there was that huge element of
my history and my brother's relationship with the band with some terrific material too. So that was a real. I have to admit, it was one of my most memorable career, highlights. So I love that everyone's talking about it. I do.
Yeah.
I do. My brother especially, because he hasn't been out there that much. Where I've been constantly, doing international travel and performing, and playing with Grand Funk and everything. So I know for him it's been a real something he's extremely proud of. So I'm happy for him.
Yeah. So now it's been 26 years, I think, since Eric Carr passed away, and you put out some of his retrospective albums, I think, after he died. Do you know if there's any more stuff coming up from Eric?
Loretta, his sister, she's very, Eric was always like a little wild and everything, and Loretta's like the female. She's very mysterious. She'll never show up at an expo or anything, but I get, funny emails from her. I know she's learned a lot through the years about how to handle the fans and everything, and it's her, it means so much to her to protect and present Eric's legacy to the fans, and I think she did put out that Unfinished Business, which I didn't really have any part of it, but she's been very active. As far as I know, there's nothing else that I have anything to do with from Eric's, the era of me working with him and the time I knew him. There was an excellent new animation of his Rockheads that Loretta worked out with some talented people in New York, and there's I hope that gets picked up. That should be on TV. That should be on like Nickelodeon or MTV or something like that. And I know that Eric, some of my music, we wrote music for that cartoon show, So I'm hoping that she can get that going, and I'm sure she'll call on me to help contribute more if it does get that opportunity, But personally, I don't have anything more of his stuff. But it's amazing what Loretta posts on her, the Eric Carr official and everything in her site. She has like every plane ticket, that he, Eric saved everything. I mean, I did a good job of keeping archives of myself, and I think I was talking about some of the tapes and things, but she had everything. Eric probably had boxes and boxes and trunks of his life with Kiss, So who knows what the future brings with that? But I don't believe there's any music that's left.
Thank you, Bruce.
You're welcome.
It was great talking to you.